Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul here at Radio Free Hammer Hall, and today I wanted to give you guys a little look into Slaves to Darkness, and I'm going to be looking at it today from the perspective of marking all of your units Nurgle, and I'm just going to take a look through the god-specific abilities in the army and kind of work on what different synergies there are and how you might think about list building within a Slaves to Darkness army with a mark of Nurgle. Now, I'm planning on also doing all of the Chaos Gods, including Chaos Undivided. So make sure, if you are not currently subscribed, hit that button down there-ish and subscribe to the channel for more. The rest should be coming fairly soon. And, of course, hit the notification bell if you have not already. That will give you a little notification when my new videos go up. So without further ado, I will share up my screen, and we will take a look at Nurgle in Slaves to Darkness. So that now should be... Nope. That's not how I wanted that to look. That's how I wanted that to look. Okay. I'm experimenting with new methods here, so I apologize. All right, so our basic allegiance ability is our Aura of Chaos. So everybody near a hero in your Slaves to Darkness army gets some sort of buff from this page. So if you have a Nurgle marked hero and a Nurgle marked unit, you get the buff, and then you get an additional buff for it being your general. So let's take a look at the Aura of Nurgle. If the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with a melee weapon by a friendly Slaves to Darkness Nurgle unit wholly within 12 inches of any friendly models with this ability, so that would be any of your friendly Nurgle heroes that are also Slaves to Darkness. If their wound roll is a 6, add 1 to the damage inflicted by that attack. So what this is doing is you're getting getting 2 damage on 6s to wound. In addition, if this model is the general, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target friendly Slaves to Darkness Nurgle units wholly within 12 inches of this model. So it makes all of your opponent's stuff -1 to hit in shooting against you within 12 inches of your general. That overall is going to make you more punchy over your whole army, and then you're going to have a center of your army around your general that is going to be more resilient to shooting. And that's also, bear in mind, that's going to stack with your Lookout Sir. So your general, if they're eligible for Lookout Sir and they're within 3 inches of 3 other models, they're going to get -2 to hit instead of -1 to hit in shooting. So that's just our basic allegiance ability. Let's take a look next at our battalion that we have for Nurgle, the Plague-Touched Warband. So 1 Mortal Slaves to Darkness Nurgle hero and 7 Mortal Slaves to Darkness Nurgle units. And if the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with a melee weapon that targets a unit from this battalion is a 6, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all of its attacks have resolved. That is very powerful. So you're bouncing back mortal wounds at your opponent for every 6 that they roll to wound. In addition, in your hero phase, you can pick 1 unit from this battalion and 1 enemy unit within 1 inch of it. If you do so, roll a die. On a 3+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So this is making your units more prickly. It's making your opponent suffer for attacking you. And then later also doing some mortal wounds back just for being in combat with you. That is very strong, and we sort of see this trend already where your Slaves to Darkness Nurgle are very defensive and also really at the same time that they're defensive, they're dealing damage back to your opponent. All right, so our Slaves to Darkness Demon Prince, if marked Nurgle, his command ability is Bloated Blessings. You can use this command ability at the start of your hero phase. If you do, and pick one friendly Slaves to Darkness Nurgle unit wholly within 12 inches of this model until your next hero phase. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack that targets the unit is 6, the attacking unit suffers D3 mortal wounds after all of its attacks have been resolved. This actually got FAQ'd so that it only happens once. Like if A6 is rolled, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. So this in particular is actually not that useful. You have a lot better ways to spend your command points than using Bloated Blessing. That doesn't mean you don't want to run a Slaves to Darkness Nurgle Demon Prince in your army, particularly if you're running Despoilers. He can be a really strong general. But it does mean that his ability here for his command ability is not going to be that useful for you. And finally, let's take a quick look at the Chaos War Shrine. So it has our usual Protection of the Gods, where you get a 6-up ward save, and your prayers on it. You get, of course, you get all of the basic prayers, but your Favor of Nurgle, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by the unit until your next hero phase. Now, if you recall, our command ability is also doing, or I'm sorry, not command ability, our Allegiance ability, our Aura of Nurgle is doing 2 damage on wound rolls of 6. So this is giving you an extra bite at the apple to get more, not only get more wounds successful, but more double damage wounds. In addition, if this unit has the Nurgle keyword, which it will in this case, add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target that unit until your next hero phase. So a very defensive ability, adding 1 to your save roll. With this prayer, it goes off on a 3-up roll, and there's not anything your opponent can do about it. And this can happen within an 18-inch radius of your Chaos War Shrine. So a really big area of the board that this is impacting. So together, what we really have here is a set of abilities that really make your units more durable, more prickly, and make you punch back harder. So it's an interesting combination of offense and defense that you're getting. And what it really makes me think of strategically is grinding with your units. That you're going to want to, and let me just close this out real quick. You're really going to want to have units that have staying power. And I think in particular, a list that is going to be heavy on Chaos Knights and Chaos Warriors is probably going to be your key to a good Nurgle list. Of course, I'm not going to ever discount the power of Chaos Marauders. They're probably the best unit in the book. One of the most efficiently cost unit in the game. So it really is a good choice, basically, no matter what. You can get them onto a 4-up save with your Chaos War Shrine, and a Chaos Sorcerer Lord can get them re-rolling their save. So 4-up re-rollable save makes them extremely defensive and very good in general. Your Chaos Warriors, though, go to a 3-up re-rollable save, and they don't need that Chaos Sorcerer Lord to do it. So that is very powerful. It saves you another hero slot, lets you use something more valuable, or lets you divert your oracular visions onto another unit. Chaos Knights are also very punchy and very durable, so you can get that same effect of a 3-up save and a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, making them reroll their saves as well. They can throw a high quantity of attacks, which is very valuable when you're fishing for 6s on your wound rolls. You can, a unit of 10 Chaos Warriors, 10 Chaos Knights with ensorcelled weapons is going to throw 51 dice. So out of that, you're going to roll a lot of 6s to wound and do a lot of extra damage to your opponent. In addition to that, if you have these units that are more durable naturally, you're going to grind out in combat longer, and your opponent's going to do more damage to themselves through the Plague Touch Warband. Their 6s to wound, doing mortal wounds back to them. Because what's going to happen is that is not damage to you. That is simply a successful wound roll of a 6. So even though they are getting successful wound rolls, if you have a block of Chaos Warriors on a 3-up rerollable save with the 6-up ward save from the War Shrine, like, there's not a lot that's going to get through that in combat, and you're going to bounce back a ton of mortal wounds on your opponent. So even though a block of Chaos Warriors isn't that offensive on its own, they don't have really strong offense, if you combine them into the Plague Touched Warband and use them as that sort of mobile, prickly anvil sort of piece, you can end up doing maybe more damage back to them with their own attacks from the Plague Touched Warband than you do with your attacks. Currently, right now in the meta, there is a lot of shooting that's going on as well. So having that bubble around your general of -1 to hit in shooting can be really, really valuable. Wholly within a 12-inch radius of your general can be very big, particularly when you are talking about having a demon prince, for example, as your general. That has a pretty decent sized base that's going to project that buff out even further and cover a greater area of the board. So there's some additional options that we can think about that we can ally in for Nurgle. And I foolishly forgot to prepare those war scrolls, but a couple of things to keep an eye on. A Harbinger of Decay can really boost up the defense level that you have available to you. So for a command point, anybody within any of your Nurgle mortals within 7 inches get a 5-up ward save. Now, that no longer is going to stack with the War Shrine, but that's okay. Just because the 5-up is better than the 6-up, and it also lets you have that center of defense there being in a different part of the battlefield than your War Shrine is. So you don't necessarily lose anything. You may be gaining additional defensive buffs that way. And that just makes you even more defensive and gives units protection from mortal wounds that would not ordinarily have protection from mortal wounds. Your Chaos Warriors, your Chaos Knights, and a variety of your heroes all have a 5-up save against mortal wounds. But your Marauders do not. And if you back up your Marauders with a Harbinger of Decay, it makes them even more strong on the defense. Another one to think about is the Glotkin is now available as an ally option. If you take the Glotkin, his Commandability gives +1 attack to all melee weapons within, I believe, 12 inches of him, and he's a pretty big base as well. So getting him up there and just getting more attacks on your Marauders in particular, or if you're running Chaos Knights, getting the extra attacks on the Chaos Knights. They get 2 extra attacks each because they have 2 melee profiles. So that you're adding, if you have a block of 10, you're adding 20 more attacks onto your Chaos Knights, and the sheer numbers that you're going to get with attacking with Chaos Knights is just so powerful, especially backed up by the Glotkin. And that, of course, gives you more opportunities to get extra damage because you're rolling extra 6s to wound, potentially. And then you also have the spell from the Glotkin that adds 1 wound to the wounds characteristic of a model, or I'm sorry, of a unit until your next hero phase. So that makes, again, your units even more defensive and gives, twice the opportunity, basically, for a unit to reflect mortal wounds back with the Plague Touched Warband. So I think that's about all I'm really thinking of for right now. Definitely look out for more videos in the future, and we are going to look at all of the different Chaos Gods and what to do there. But for now, I am going to sign off. Thank you all, and I will talk to you all later.